Welcome back to Straight Facts with Dom Husam. How are you, my friend? How are you?
Looking at that intro, I miss my hair, man. I need my hair to grow back. I need my hair to grow back before the season starts. But other than that, I'm good. Thank you for having me. Big up everyone in the comments as well. Make sure you're liking. Make sure you're subscribing. Big up to the terrace.
Absolutely. It's good to have you. Loads to talk about today as well, ladies and gentlemen. Big Arsenal hijack of a huge target for Chelsea, which we'll delve into. The Gvardiol deal has momentarily collapsed. We're going to talk Amrabat to United. We're going to look at Verratti to Liverpool. Harry Kane's transfer is deemed to be closer. And I do want to focus on City as well, because the Premier League kicks off in 3 weeks. 3 weeks today. It's crazy how quickly it's coming around. And, you know, Gvardiol's not through the door yet. Lots of players seemingly on their way out. So I want to get Husam's kind of take on what's going on there. Viewers, you know what to do, though. Like button, smash them. Hit the subscribe button and turn the bell notifications on for us as well. The first deal I wanted to talk about, actually, though, was is the situation with Man City, because it's now reported that the Josko Gvardiol deal has, for now, collapsed. RB Leipzig have come out. They're very angry. They're very frustrated. They're very annoyed that it was announced as done. And essentially, Fabrizio Romano saying, here we go. They said the deal's not even close. They're nowhere near the asking price. They want 100 million euros. And they've essentially said that sort of City have leaked the information that the deal was done. It didn't come from our side or the player's side. And they're bang out of order. And that's, as far as we can see, you know, they went for Rice, they didn't get him. They haven't been able to get the Gvardiol deal done. And you know what? If Man United or if Liverpool or if Arsenal were dragging these deals on to 3 weeks before kickoff of the Premier League, there would be criticism from the media. There would be outrage. But for some reason, City seem to be just getting away with it a little bit. You know, they haven't signed any marquee players. They haven't really improved their squad. They've got big players leaving. And I know that they've got the best manager in the world right now. They have got a very strong squad. But it just seems like no one's really reacting to it, almost just ignoring it, if that makes sense. And the Fabrizio's thing with this deal as well, it's not a good look for them right now, City.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the reason that it is being ignored is exactly in the question. It is because they have Pep Guardiola. It's because they are Man City. It's because they just won the treble. They just won 3 in a row. So that's why people are not going like, whoa, what's happening to City? Because they're just like, it's City. They're going to be back again. And there's people I speak to as well, City fans and non-City fans, who just think they're kind of going to walk the league next season anyway. Like, they're really not worried about anything. And they keep telling me, look, Pep Guardiola is in charge of this football club, and I trust him with everything. So I'm just going to sit back. Now, with the whole Gvardiol deal, I mean, look, me and Terry and others, people who have been watching for football for a really long time, know exactly what's happened with this whole Gvardiol thing. It doesn't need a genius to work it out. Essentially, what happened is, after, it was announced, the people that Leipzig were looking at to probably replace Gvardiol have now also increased their price tag based on how much money Leipzig are getting. What I think has happened is, essentially, is like whoever replacement that Leipzig had lined up for Gvardiol, whichever club he plays for, they probably went like, wait a minute, you're getting that much money for Gvardiol. We're going to bump up the price by 5 million, by 10 million, something like that. And now they've got to do all that. It's funny how Fabrizio is tweeting about the leak when he's probably the leak in this whole situation anyway. Yeah. It's the funniest thing I've seen in my life, because he's like, Leipzig are really angry about the leak, and he's the leak. He kind of reporting about himself there. So
that made me die, because I was like, bro, you're the guy that leaked it. What are you talking about? You did the here we go. Like, it is funny. And as Lightning Gamers here says, if Fabrizio ruined this deal, we all owe him a debt. Yes, we do. If Fabrizio inadvertently ruins this deal, or like or it gets delayed till January, with you guys with Van Dijk and the tapping up thing, you had to apologize, but they just wouldn't. You had to wait until the January. Listen, that wouldn't be a bad thing. That wouldn't be a bad thing for Premier League rivals of City for them to kind of miss out on this guy. But do you think that City? Listen, I think everything you said there is right. That as you say, there also could just be an element of RB Leipzig were not ready for it to be announced, and they're annoyed at City because they may have said, "Look, can you not announce it for another day or two? We've got to do some things." And then they've obviously told. The City have obviously told Fabrizio, and Fabrizio's not got the memo and tweeted, and Leipzig are just angry. But when you look at City overall, Kyle Walker looks like he's going to leave. they keep saying Bernardo Silva isn't leaving, but all the stories say that he is. Gundogan's gone, Laporte. There's another one. Mahrez has left. Do you think they've taken too much strength in depth away? Because most City fans think they're only going to sign Gvardiol and one more person. And then I'm looking at it and thinking to myself, lost a lot of strength in depth. They've lost some of the best players in their club's history. And I know they've got Pep. And I know they've got great resources. But historically in football, even the best run clubs, when some of your greatest ever players leave, there's inevitably like how many teams replace their greatest ever players with somebody as good or better in the history of football? It's so hard to do. Like, do you feel like, I'm not saying City can be bad next year, but do you feel as though City's exits are kind of opening the door a little bit for Arsenal, for Liverpool to step into and take their title away from them?
Absolutely. And some people might think it's insane, and I understand where they're coming from. But here's the thing, some people just kind of are giving up on next season's league title. I'm not. I don't think it's all over. I don't think it's done. I don't think City are just guaranteed winners, because in the Premier League, the reality is you're never guaranteed to win anything. You've got to go out there and earn it. Now, there is something, and this is something I apply to my own football club, which we'll speak about later. There is something in football I do believe in called too much change. I think if you change too much as well, it also affects your team negatively. My thing is with City is as good as they are, as good as their manager is, as good as their club is, when it comes to them, they are selling too many players. That's also the unfortunate reality for Manchester City. I think they're getting rid of too many players as well. They're kind of sat there like essentially selling maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces who all got involved in their league title next season. And I think City never start quick anyway. City never start quick anyway. The only year they started quick is the Centurion season. Other than that, they usually always start slow. So if Liverpool or Arsenal can start really quick in the first 10, 12, 13, 14 games, most likely Liverpool, of course, because we might have a different winner. If it's Arsenal, I don't trust them in April, March, and May. That's the problem. But with Liverpool, I do trust my club in those moments. So yeah, that's what I think. I don't think they're guaranteed a league title. I think they should be worried because they are selling too many people and they are getting rid of too many players. This is the reality of football. You cannot sell 10 players and act like nothing happened just because you're Man City. Yeah. Life doesn't work this way.
There's this comment here from Alex, who's a City fan. It says Gundogan is our greatest player. Have some shame. Gundogan is one of the greatest players in Man City's history. For me, that is undeniable. Mahrez is one of your greatest ever wingers. Bernardo Silva, one of your greatest ever wingers. I don't believe you've ever had a right back better than Kyle Walker. To lose all 4 of them in one summer is huge. And the thing is, people act like every player that City sign have been amazing for them. They haven't. That's why there was a huge. That's Bravo replaced by Edison. The amount of money that was spent on fullbacks because the first intake from Pep didn't work when he first came in. The Ferran Torreses of this world and a number of others that were bought for the wings and midfield didn't work, and you had to buy other people. Now that's not a detriment. That's not a dig at Pep. All managers, Shankly, Fergie, Clough, the greats, they've all bought duds. The point is there is no guarantee that if you replace those 5 players with 5 new signings, that they're going to be at the same level as Kyle Walker's, Gundogan, Silva's. And the reason I say that is because they're some of the greatest in your club's history. I look at Man United, and case in point being, we had teams that were as great as the City side. We won trebles. In my opinion, we still haven't replaced Gary Neville. We still haven't replaced Wayne Rooney. We still haven't replaced. We may now be getting towards replacing Rio and Vidic a decade later. We have got bad recruitment. I don't think if City get it wrong, they'll get it right very quickly. Does that make sense? I'm not saying they'll keep buying the wrong people, but the idea that the replacement for Mahrez is going to be as good, the replacement for Gundogan is going to be as good, I think that's delusional. And these guys have been so good, so clutch, so clinical for you for a long period of time. It's hard, even with Pep's ability, to replace that. And history shows you that's the case. It's hard. Look at Barcelona. Have Xavi and Iniesta been replaced? No. You look at Real Madrid. Vinicius Jr. is doing bits, but they haven't replaced Pete Benzema. They can't replace Ronaldo. It's impossible. Like, I don't even think they've replaced Sergio Ramos. When you have players of this, like of the top level for your club, replacing them is so hard because that level of player, they're finite. They're so hard. There's scarcity of them. And then you've got to try and replace 5 across 5 positions in one summer. You're weakening your team. City are still the favourites for me, but they are weakening their team to a point where they're opening that door for rivals. And listen, that's why Arsenal doing their business early, all their main players in for pre-season is so important. Liverpool have got 2 of their main players in. They're moving players out. They'll get some more in. United, 2 through the door now. Hopefully another one next week. We need them in sooner. And the fact City bought no one so far. I know they've bought in Kovacic, but we all know he's good, but he's not Gundogan. He's not Bernardo Silva. They've bought nobody in yet. That's not good. That's not good, especially when you've had a team that's won a treble and it's going to be really difficult to remotivate them next year based on Pep's own words. Listen, I'm not writing them off. That would be dumb. But this notion of their City, they'll be fine. Football was demonstrated to us in the past. That's not true.
And also, let me say something to this Alex guy. I don't know why Alex is so upset when Terry says, like, Gundogan is one of your greatest ever players. Remember, you're Man City, with all due respect. Like, your club started 10 years ago. So any player who has 5 good seasons for you is automatically a legend. That's just how life works for you. We understand that. So you can't be getting triggered when someone says he's a legend. Kyle Walker, who's your better right back than him in your entire history? Gundogan, other than the last 10 years, he's probably better than any midfielder that's ever played for your football club. So all this, listen, like, we get it, you won the Champions League and stuff, but you're still like, you just became relevant. So any player that has 5 good seasons, 3 good seasons, people are talking about Haaland and Aguero conversations. That doesn't happen at my football club. That doesn't happen at Terrace football club, but your club is new. So it's normal. You just have to get used to it.
Yeah. And look, when I said about replacing my legends, it's very hard to become, to surpass Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, Wayne Rooney. You've got, it isn't just ability. You've got to win so many trophies to do that. But it's all, there is an ability element, and it's hard sometimes to do that. And we've messed up. Well, I think we're getting towards it now, Man United. We're getting towards, I look at the squad we've got now, and if Onana is as good as I think, you've got Casemiro, you've got, other players we're now linked to, I think to myself, well, these guys could be in the conversation with past great teams. Bruno Fernandes, for me, could play for all of Fergie's teams. Does that make sense? He would have been in the first team or in and around the first team squad. There's no doubt. And that's how you know if your team's buying quality. Do they get into your greatest sides? And when you see Pavard being linked to replace Walker, well, he doesn't. He wouldn't even fit in your top 3 right backs in the Sheikh era because Bakary Sagna, Zabaleta, and Walker all go above him. So you're buying someone that wouldn't even be in your top 3 right backs in the last decade. So that's the point I'm making. It's are you bringing in the quality that could compete with your greatest ever teams? Because that's the level that you need to be at. So yeah, look, I'm people can say it's copium all they want. I'm pointing this out. City are still the favourites, but they're opening that door.
I don't necessarily think it's guaranteed though. I don't think it's guaranteed City are the favourites. It really all depends on the summer transfer window. It depends on what we do. It depends on what Arsenal do. I think we could go into a world in which maybe City aren't the favourites. If they mess up this Gvardiol deal, they mess around, they go get Mark Wahi or some shit, then no, I'm not going to sit up here and talk about City being the favourites. I'm not going to be delusional for me. So I stick around till the transfer window ends, and then we talk about who's the favourite.
Terry, Pep doesn't buy the established players. He turns them into monsters. Well, everyone in the world knew who Ilkay Gundogan was when you bought him. Everybody knew who KDB was. He was young when you bought him. I think KDB might have come the year before, to be fair, maybe. But Haaland, you're telling me Haaland's not an established goal scorer when he bought him? Riyad Mahrez was already a Premier League winner. You spent £100 million on a player in his mid-20s in Jack Grealish. You guys have bought some really good established players in the past. Yes, Edison was one of the best goalkeepers around when you bought him. Kyle Walker, one of the top right backs in the Premier League when you bought him. And I'm just, these are just off the top of my head. Yeah, he's bought some young, what's his name? Rodri came in very young, fairly unknown. They bought Alvarez. And of course, there's those examples. But to act like Pep's never gone out and bought players that the whole world is buzzing about, it again is a lie. Again, I'm not saying he doesn't do that, but acting like he's never bought an established player is a really weird thing to say. And you're right, yeah, Akanji, no one rated him. So again, I'm not saying he doesn't do it. But to say that he only buys players that nobody rates and turns them into stars isn't true. And it isn't true he turns every player into a star. Otherwise, Bravo would still be your goalkeeper, as an example. You know, and you've bought a number of players who haven't worked out as well. And that's why I'm saying when you lose 5-6 top quality players in one window, even if you look at the percentage success rate of Gvardiol, say he's got a 70% success rate of his transfers, that means that at least one or two of those new replacements are not going to work. And that opens up opportunities. But there's a super chat here that says, time for City to show they are big dogs now. Treble winners, current European champions. We won't overpay for players. Has to stop. Pay the money. Yeah, look, what I will say is there's a lot of hypocrisy around, because Arsenal, when they were trying to get the price down for Declan Rice, were abused by the media. Forget fans. When they bid for what's his name, Caicedo in January, abused. But when Man City are like lowballing, no one has a problem with it. And I will, like Man United, stop penny pinching for Mount, pay the money. But when City do it, not one single journalist in the world has a problem with it. And by the way, there is no problem with it. But this is why United fans and Arsenal fans, I think, have got to learn to relax. Like, stop reacting to the nonsense headlines, because we know it ain't consistent. But that's just my take anyway. But there we go. On to staying in Manchester, Man United. Some breaking news this afternoon that Nottingham Forest have reached an agreement. They're going to buy Elanga, big old £15 million for him. He's gone, which I'm really happy about. We're raising them funds for Sam, which we need. On top of that, the Amrabat deal looks like it's, you know, that they're saying that personal terms are not going to be a problem. The first official offer is going to go in soon. Exits were kind of needed first. I know Amrabat's been linked to Liverpool as well, but it does appear that Man United are kind of leading this race as of right now. How good a signing do you think this will be for Man United in terms of us, you know, maintaining a top 4 position and maybe even entering a title race?
I mean, I'm really good at hating on Manchester United. This is my chef special. You know, I'm very good at it. But I think with Amrabat, it is a fantastic signing. But like, the only thing I'd say, I have nothing against the player. I think Amrabat's really good. I think he's an unbelievable tackler of football. And you know, I just want to say one thing. People kind of say like World Cup tax, like that's a bad thing. Like, okay, the guy played really well at the heights of football and the biggest competition of all time against some of the best teams, against Spain, Portugal. You know, with all due respect, it's not like he dominated, you know, against like some random team. He was unbelievable against Spain, against Portugal, stuff like that. Like, my only thing would be is he's probably going to say yes to joining like Manchester United, because he does play for Fiorentina. You know, with all due respect, it's not like he's playing for a massive club or something. But the issue is as follows. This is the problem. When it comes to the actual starting 3, I don't think you could have a world in which you play Amrabat and Casemiro together, because it becomes way too defensive. So unless you're trying to maybe rest Casemiro for a game, you know, do that. Maybe he's coming in there as squad rotation option. I understand that, but he's a straight up 6. I really don't think he can play the 8 at all. So I don't think he has that. He has that about him, or that ability about him, and he's really defensive. He's really defensive. So he would have to you know, maybe rotate with Casemiro a little bit. But with Man United, I'll be honest, they could sign Amrabat, they could sign Højlund. They really just don't worry me. I'm really not looking at Man United like that. I think Man United are going to be in a fight for top 4, and maybe my predictions for last year will come through a year later. You never know.
Why are you not? I'm going to say, actually, we'll come back onto that. I think with Amrabat, I think what you just said though is right to a large degree. I think he is there to come in and help when Casemiro can't play. He is there for rotation. And look, Casemiro's got the fitness levels to play 50 games, 60 games in a season. But if he ends up missing 10 games again we lost him for 7 matches for suspension. If we would have had an Amrabat to step into those games, top 4 would have been a lot easier. And, you know, we may have been able, with rotation, we may have been able to have stayed in the game against Sevilla as an example. And I feel like because he missed so many games and he went back into matches like that a little bit rusty because he'd missed like 3 weeks of football because he was suspended. I also think there is a world where they can play together. Watching Amrabat, you know, researching about him, looking at what he does as a football player, the guy's good on the ball. So I think if you start them both together against, there's lots of teams you could start them both together against with a Bruno Fernandes ahead of them, and there's more than enough creativity from Bruno, the wide players, whoever our number 9 is going to be, to break teams down. I also think where they could be really useful as a pair is away at Anfield, away at the Emirates, away at the Etihad. That's where them two as a double pivot in the middle to, you know, if we want to play.
Do you really think that will work though?
Yeah, I do. I think it can work massively because Casemiro is good on the ball. I would say Amrabat is, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, and if you look at him statistically, is slightly better. But them two together being a blockade to whatever the onslaught from those types of teams, and then using speed on in the whips and on the outlets for counters and transitions, plus with the footballing ability that Onana's got, pinging that ball very, very quickly out to the wide position for counterattacks. I think it could work really, really well for Man United. And for me, it's about options. And when I look at Man City last season, it's why I'm talking about City's depth going. It's when Casemiro missed the game, injury, suspension, all I saw was rivals celebrate. Yes, that means Man United got a chance of losing. For me, whether he sits on the bench or whether he starts more games than we expect, it is irrelevant to me. The fact is, if you're going, Casemiro's out, but Amrabat's coming in, you're maintaining a very high standard. It's that strength in depth that I want to have. And we haven't got that in all our positions yet. It isn't there for us, but it's being built as we speak. And that's where I look at Liverpool when you were at your peak under Klopp. You had good strength in depth. You were bringing on players that were still very good and very, very dangerous. And City have just been the best at that. Arsenal this summer have added that depth. Their midfield next year, like their worst central midfielder might end up being Jorginho, their main guys. And you sort of think to yourself, if you're worst midfielder Jorginho, you're in a pretty good situation. And that's what I'm excited about. Away from
the only thing would be is, do you think Amrabat himself would say yes to playing the bench? Because, like, I think he'd probably want to start. And here's the thing. I'm going to disagree with you from a football perspective. I really don't think they can play together because they're both, like, lone six types. They're both too defensive. And I think, like, in the double pivot thing, I'm not listening. You know me. I don't do the whole tactical thing. I believe in player, like, flexibility and everything. Yeah. But at the same time, I think, like, with them, you need someone who's, like, you know, if you would like a ball carrier, what they call nowadays, or a ball progressor, someone who passes the ball forward, someone who keeps the ball well, which I don't think either of them do like that. I'm going to be honest with you.
Listen, I hear you, but I think what's really key for me is if you look at their, like, heat maps. Heat maps are a really good indicator of a player because it's where they touch and use the ball, and they take up different positions on the football pitch. Does that make sense? They don't occupy the same spaces. And that for me is the most intriguing part of these two when you kind of break down what they do. Is they're very, like, Amrabat is far more forward thinking, where if you actually look at the majority of Casemiro's touches, 70% of them are in his own half, where with Amrabat, 70% of them are in the opponent's half. So for me, there's an overlap in the two players. There is elements of their game that are the same, but Amrabat also likes to drive forward with the ball. Y Scout's a really, really good piece of kicks. It has stats, but then it has video footage to every stat. And he likes to drive forward with the ball at times. The problem we have is that people have only really watched Amrabat when either at the World Cup or they watched like a couple of the European games. What you're not seeing is where Fiorentina are the more dominant team, and he's progressing the ball more and he's moving it forward. This is what happens with Atletico Madrid. Everybody just thinks they're pragmatic because people only ever watch Ati in the big games. They don't watch them against 90% of the league where they're the aggressors and they attack, which is why the fallacy of João Felix was only underperforming because the team was negative. No, he was underperforming because he wasn't finishing his dinner. They actually attack most teams they play. I think there's a really good player in there. For me, I wanted to ask you, though, you said you're not really that worried about Man United. I know you think Liverpool are going to be back in the title hunt. What do you think is going to be, why don't you think Man United are going to progress from where they were last season and put themselves near a title race or just improve generally? Why don't you think there'll be an improvement?
Oh, I think they will improve, but I don't think they're going to get to, like, improve on the league position necessarily. Like, they might improve in terms of maybe style of football, stuff like that, but I don't think they're going to improve, in terms of results on the pitch, because I think they're going to face, you've got the 2 games a week thing. I don't think Mount is a smart signing. And look, I've not been biased. I think both Mount and Havertz are going to fail. I don't like either signings. I think both signings are, I just don't think it's gonna work. And I've seen Mount and I think against Leon and stuff, and he didn't really have the best game. Look, and we cannot judge based on preseason, so I'm not gonna come up here and make crazy statements like, oh my God, he's gonna fail because he played shit against Leon. Like, I'm not gonna say that, but I think with him, I just don't think it works. The dynamic of that midfield doesn't work. I think the style of football as well is a question mark. So we're gonna have to wait and see what actually Man United are gonna play with. And against Leon as well, I believe it was against Leon, I swear. Against Leon, I swear as well, we kind of found out there is still the same problem with Man United, which is also putting the ball in the back of the net. You're kind of maybe too reliant on one or two players to put the ball in the back of the net. Do I think Højlund is enough to get you over the hump? My honest answer would be no. I don't think he's enough to get you over the hump. And that's not me hating. That's me going into the summer expecting United to sign Harry Kane, which is like levels above. So had you signed Harry Kane, I'd be sat up here going like, fuck, I'm worried about Man United. Forget all this Onana, all this. Forget everyone. If you had signed only Kane, I'm saying, like, that's how much I think he makes a difference. If you just signed Kane and none of these guys, I think you would definitely be a problem just based on who Harry Kane is as a football player and how much he'd bring Anthony into the game, he'd bring Rashford into the game, he'd bring Sancho into the game because he's that good. But for me now, when we're talking about Højlund, we're talking about the Mount thing, we don't know how that would work. I think the smartest signing you made so far is definitely Onana. Onana is could be, and as well for that price tag nowadays, that's a crazy price to get him for. So I think Onana is a fantastic signing. But the rest, I'm kind of like, whoa, like I don't get it. And we will wait and see. I'm not hating, we'll wait and see. But so far, I predict United to finish fourth. I learned my lesson from last year. I'm not putting them outside the top four, but I think they're going to probably finish fourth.
Yeah, but do you know what I find interesting? Look, you're entitled to your opinions. I think to make the top four this year, we have to get more points than we got last season. So therefore, there'll be an improvement. And I believe Man United will improve anywhere between 10 to 15 points. And I think that puts you near a title race because I don't actually see the winner of the Premier League getting more than 90 to 92 points next season. And my reasoning for that is just maths. It's not even if Liverpool are better, Chelsea are better, United are better. If Newcastle improve, there's just less points to go around because if we're all winning more games, there's only a certain amount of points. And I just don't see anybody getting more than that. So we're 10 points better off. We're not that far away from being in a title race. It's just basic maths. I think we will improve, and I think the Onana deal is hugely significant. Hugely significant. We are just going to be a different footballing team with him. Mount, listen, I don't disagree with you on Mount. I'm intrigued by that deal to a point where I don't kind of get it, but I trust my manager enough to go, okay, I'm going to give it time. But I think Højlund, I think he's going to surprise people. This kid is serious, and a lot of United fans, £50 million is too much for a player that's kind of just broken through. My prediction with him is, and I'm basing this, by the way, on things I've read about him and not read about him on Man United websites in the last week. I'm talking about scouting reports from 6 months ago that had no bearing on where he was going to go next. There's a big feeling that this season, if he stays at Atalanta, is going to be a year where he blows up 20 plus goals. Then you're looking at buying him and costing 80, 90, 100 million pounds. I think we need to act now and get the deal done, because I think he's going to be a player that's going to become too expensive. Not too expensive, but far more expensive and would get laughed at. However, where I agree with you, I think we can push and be on the edge of a title race with the signings we're making. If we then also land a Harry Kane, who we know wants to leave Tottenham, then I believe we've got a chance of winning the Premier League next year.
Yeah, that's a different world. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's a completely different world. Completely different world. Because you've signed a world-class player. I think, listen, Harry Kane gets a lot of stick. I understand why, the whole trophies thing, but he's world class. Like, we cannot shit on the guy who's been scoring like unbelievable amounts of goals over the last 7-8 years. So I think that's why I'm saying, like, look, when we first done Straight Facts, my first Straight Facts episode, we were sat here talking about Harry Kane and Kim Min-jae. I would have been worried about Man United had that happened, yes. But now we went from Kane and Kim Min-jae to Mount and Højlund. So of course I'm gonna step back and go like, okay, wait a minute, this is maybe a little bit of like a step backward in terms of at least ideas or ideals or where you're going with this. This is my thing. And when you say Mount, Mount, we're gonna have to wait and see. I agree with you. We're gonna have to wait and see. I think with Højlund, I just don't think he's that guy yet. He's still a raw talent. He needs years to develop. So had you signed maybe both Kane and Højlund, you'd have your starter and the guy ready to replace Kane when Kane goes off. So there's like You could have done that. But right now, as of today, like 21st July 2023, do I think Højlund would take United over the edge? I don't think they would. I think Mount could also become a bad signing for the dressing room, because we can see he's a little bit of a drama queen. If you do sign Amrabat, and suddenly Amrabat's playing really well, and suddenly you bench Mason Mount, then he's kind of causing a little bit of a fuss. Like, I didn't come to Man United to sit on the bench. So that could also be a little bit of extra drama. So for me, so far from your signings, I love Onana. I think unbelievable signing. And I have given him so much praise. But the rest, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to have to wait and see. I cannot say anything right now.
No, listen, I understand that. And it's hard to do predictions right now. Someone in the comments said, why are you saying ifs and buts? Well, because at this stage of the season, it's all ifs and buts, because the transfer window hasn't shut and a ball hasn't been kicked as of right now. So every single person saying what's happening next year is based on ifs and buts, because everything I've said about City earlier on in the video, if City go out and sign Kimmich, they bring in Gvardiol, they bring in, I'm just going to make some names up here, they sign Rafinha, and they sign a top right back, then suddenly you go, replaced the outgoing players with top quality. So your opinion changes. So that's what's very true. But for me, I believe that Man United will improve to a point where we will be on the edge of that title race. And if we do bring the Kane in, then we're in a chance. In terms of your own predictions, though, I will share with the world what you said last year, where you said regardless of who they sign, Man United won't even be in the top 4 race. Time to adjust to Ten Hag's system, and Thursday night football will have a negative effect on them. A bigger chance of making it through Europa by winning the Europa League than through the league. So what I will say is your opinion last year was very wrong, and I hope it's just as wrong. I hope it's just as wrong.
You made top 4 because Liverpool and Chelsea suck, Terry, and you know this. The idea that I on some of my match reactions in April, I came in and they were like, "Oh, do you think Liverpool's gonna make top 4?" That in itself is an embarrassment, because we are so shit this season. So we shouldn't have even been close to you, but somehow we managed being like 4 or 5 points away from you. Listen, that was a bad prediction to an extent, because Europa did get to you a little bit, but Liverpool were crap and Chelsea were crap. So for me, both of these clubs just were out the equation. I mean, here's the thing. You know why that prediction ain't crazy? Because Newcastle made the top 4. So it's not like you've done some unbelievable thing. Newcastle are in the top 4 because there's no competition. There is no competition. We just disappeared.
Yeah, look, you most certainly had a bad season, but I still don't think you can take it away from Manchester United. The difference is, and I understand that logic, that because you didn't get the points, you weren't 4 or 5 points away from us, by the way, it was 8, so we didn't just get that right. It was a bit more than what you've said. However, though, Chelsea and Liverpool being bad didn't help us win games, barring the games where we beat you at home. If we were as bad as you predicted, we would have been in those 6, 7, 8 places with you. It would have been somebody else in the top 4. So, as I said before, it's not about what you didn't do. It's about that we still had to win those football matches. We still had to accumulate those points. And if you'd have said to anybody, we'll get 23 wins, 75 points last season, you'd have also said no chance Man United are doing that. And that's there's no bearing on what anybody else does. And I think there'll be an improvement in us next year. I honestly think we'll get we'll get between 85 and 90 points this season, Manchester United. And a lot of that is going to come down to us scoring more goals. I think Rashford will have another very good season. I think Bruno will score more again this year. I think there'll be an increase from the Antonys of this world. And whoever it is, even if Højlund comes in, this guy will score for us at least 15 league goals, at least in his first year. That's still significant for us with everybody else contributing, because we only scored 58 league goals last year, which isn't enough. And we need to improve by 25 to 30 goals. Now, how you do that is you bring somebody in that's, an extra 15 from him. All you then need is the Antonys and Brunos to improve their outputs, 3, 4, 5 each. And I think that's doable as the team improves. The style of, and Onana as a goalkeeper will be significant in that because of how we build the play up. So look, and having a stronger midfield and a stronger base. I think you look at Mason Mount and the guys coming in, they'll score more goals than the McTominays of this world and their counterparts. We'll also this season, if we bring Amrabat in, we'll be using. He got a weird player in the Man United team who got a lot of disrespect last year in the end from fans was Christian Eriksen. But he was being made to play in a position that's not his best, in a deep midfield role where he didn't quite have the physicality to do it. But if he's now playing understudy to Bruno and or playing in a more attacking role behind the strikers, We know how creative he is. No one's even talking about it. If we've got a base now with the Amrabats and the Casemiros and the Mounts, but you're playing Eriksen in his natural position as a creator, that's going to improve Man United. The goal outputs will improve. No doubt about that in my mind. So yeah, I'm very excited about the new season for Man United. There's no doubt. And rivals are obviously very fearful that what I'm saying could be true. They're very scared that Man United are going to improve again. We know you all are.
Relax, I'm not scared, man.
Of course you're scared. You look at the way you all were last season with Arsenal was a precursor. If Man United get back to being at their best,
I hate my life, man.
That is hell on earth for everybody, because with Man United are everybody's rivals. When the new fixtures came out, the first thing you all look for was, when are we playing Man United? We are everybody's.
Who did you first look for? Be honest.
Liverpool, always. Always
Liverpool. I'm honest. To be honest, I looked at Man United first. I admit it.
And everyone looks for Man United. Even Burnley, when we play Man United, that's it, right? Then I look for Liverpool first. Then I look for Arsenal. Then I look for Chelsea. Then I look for City. Typically, that's the order I go in. Outside of that, I don't look at any other ones. I don't really care when any other fixtures are. They're the four in the order that I go in there.
You're being a bit hopeful, and you're giving all the positive scenarios, which I understand. And there is a word in which, hear me out, there's a word in which what you're saying happens. It's not impossible. Could Haaland score 15? Yes. Could Mason Mount be figured out under Ten Hag? Yes. Could Onana be one of the best signings, one of the best keepers in the season? Yes. But also the opposite could happen. Maybe one of them would come really good, the other might not come good. So maybe one works out, one doesn't. So you never know. All I'm saying is, personally, I like one out of the three signings so far. I have every right to have that opinion. What I will say regarding next season is the Champions League is also different. So, like, involved in Europa League, I know Ten Hag didn't really rotate as much. This is something I use more against Arsenal fans, because Arteta rotated like heavily in the Europa League. With United, like, Ten Hag still played some starters, but now, like, actually mostly starters. Now he's like gonna go full starters. Like, it's the same exact team that's gonna play. We will see what happens. We will see. But I'm just saying, you're just not that guy yet. You're not that guy yet. Had you signed Kane and Kim Min-jae, you'd have been that guy. You're not that guy now.
I'm not claiming that we're that guy. I've said I think we'll be on the edge of a title race. I'm still predicting right now. If I was to predict, I'd say third. I don't think we'll finish in front of Arsenal. I don't think we'll finish in front of City. I may change my mind in the season if Arsenal and City are not as good as I expect, and United are even better than I expect. But I'm not predicting us to win the league right now. But I do think there'll be a significant improvement in our team. And the Christian Eriksen situation is not being discussed. I'm going to start the trend here. You will see big United channels, and you'll see people on the mainstream media in the next few weeks start to talk about it. But if he gets utilized, when we signed him, there was a lot of Man United fans excited about him challenging Bruno's position. Now, Bruno's a captain, which means we know he's going to stay in the first team regularly. However,
Bruno gets over half your fan base as well. Bruno
listen,
don't lie. Half your fan base was crying with that.
Of course, but that's reality. But the reason they're crying over Bruno becoming the captain is because they're man babies. They're man babies. They don't. No, it's true. They don't have the ability as men to say, "I was wrong about Bruno." Now, subjectively, they don't have to love Bruno. They don't have to enjoy his style of play, because there are lots of players that players at Man United history who I love as players, but I'm not a massive fan of how they play for us. Berbatov's an example. Silky and there's something about him annoyed me. I much prefer a Rooney or a Tevez style.
The same group would have wanked over Berbatov nowadays.
No, exactly. By the way, I know, and this is the difference. I know Berbatov was amazing. I loved Berbatov, but he wasn't my favorite type of footballer. Although what's strange about it is I loved Teddy Sheringham when I was a kid. But that's the point I'm making. Like, I don't have to love some of these stylistically for me to respect them. But these man babies, they are just crying because their prediction was Donny van der Beek would, under Ten Hag, would see Bruno phased out. But instead, they even last year were talking, there were Bruno haters in spaces saying he's been moved out to the right because the manager don't trust him. They've just lied all year. They just admit your opinion on Bruno is wrong. And what really becomes difficult is they did this whole, but I love the manager. Well, the manager's just made this decision. Just admit you got it wrong and leave the subject. So you're right, they were crying, but I love him as captain. Again, we'll see an even better Bruno
And
next
he didn't
year.
even ask the squad or anything. He made the decision himself, which shows like he's like, nope, I'm actually going to make him captain. I can't lie, the Bruno thing is just like, it's just like, you know, you've got to just take your L at this point. Like, khalas, just move it, keep it stepping, man. It's just. I think this whole thing started because of the whole Bruno Pogba conversations, and they haven't let go ever since. That's just
no, but this is that's why I call them man babies, because man babies United. They just I love it's like the Rashford stuff. Some of them are still holding on to not liking Rashford because their prediction was Martial would leave him behind, and instead of going, do you know what? You're right. Again, stylistically, they'll always prefer Martial to Rashford, and they're entitled to think that. But objectively, who's delivered more for the club? Who is like? Listen, I said it the other day. In my opinion, Cavadonna could maybe be the only guy, but there isn't a left-sided inside forward in the world who Man United could sign who's better than Marcus Rashford. We can't sign Vinicius Jr. We can't sign Kylian Mbappe. And I don't believe there's anyone who plays on that left-hand side who we could sign.
Even Rodrigo, you probably can't sign. That's the thing from Madrid. That's another one.
Yeah, you can't get him. You know, Arsenal fans might say
Martin. This is actually
Martinelli.
something I went through. Loki, you look at that left wing place, and there isn't much. There really isn't much because there's a difference between attainable and actual. The only guy I'd maybe mention alongside that is Leao. But other than that, there's really no one.
Yeah, I mean, Rafael Leao is brilliant, but I think Marcus Rashford overall is better. Maybe not a dribbling. Leao might have better skills, but overall, I saw that right now as well, by the way. I think Rafael Leao in the next 2 to 3 years could get to that level and go beyond him. There's no doubt about it. But for me, that's why I always say to these guys, this is how I know you're wrong about Rashford. When it comes to attainability, like you've said, who could we realistically sign who improves us beyond Marcus Rashford on that left-hand side? Practically impossible. Practically impossible. It's like you
or they cost 100 million.
Yeah, but even then, would they want to come to Man United? Like Mbappe and Vinny Jr. are better, but they're not gettable. So if they're not gettable, you know, some people, Jack Grealish is better. Yeah, well, you're going to sell him to us. If he's not gettable, it's a pointless conversation because we're not saying who's the best. He's the best in the world. But if we can't sign better than him, he's the best you can get. Therefore, you can't moan that he's in your team. Like, it don't even make sense. It's just a pointless, brain-dead argument. And most of the Man United fans that hate on these two are just butthurt that their footballing opinion on this subject, by the way, because they're right about other things, on this subject, they got wrong. And instead of being men and grown-ups and saying, you know what, I was wrong about that, and then leaving the subject, they're still doing spaces now on we should drop Bruno. He's just been made captain. It's a pointless conversation. Let's do some of these super chats here. This says, hating a player who performs is confusing. Yeah, always. Liverpool fans did it to years to Mo Salah. Oh, but technically he's not that great. Shut up. He's in my opinion, probably your best attacker, striker or attacker since Ian Rush. I can't think of anyone who's been better than him, more consistent than him.
That's fact.
He's surpassed Fowler, surpassed Owen, surpassed Torres, surpassed Suarez, all of them. And there are still some Liverpool fans. Oh, but technically though, he ain't that good. Who gives? I don't care. I don't get why you care. It's mad to me. This here says probably because Dimitar looked lazy. It was. Do you know what? It wasn't that. I know he wasn't lazy. It was just there were times where when we had Ronaldo, Tevez, Rooney, the way those three could press before. People think pressing's a new thing. Go back and watch those three. Berbatov wasn't that kind of player, and I felt it. Sometimes having Berbatov helped us. Sometimes I think it hindered us, and it wasn't my preference. However, I liked him. This year says 9 in Italy equals 15 in the Prem. That's hopeful, Terry. Look, I know Lee Gunner does this thing where wherever someone scores in Italy or Germany, he halved it for the Premier League. But again, how'd that work out with Haaland? Now, I know Haaland's a special player, but by that logic, he would score half that amount in the Premier League. It doesn't equate like that, you know? There's been many a player signed from leagues everyone says are under us that have done well. You know, so yeah, I think it's again with Lee Gunner, it's fair to have as a kind of, he has a lot of blanket opinions, but when you start to do your research and look at multiple other examples, they don't always work out. Back-to-back improvements by 15 points is very rare. Maybe I get where you're coming from, But 15 would be the maximum amount of points extra I think we would get season on season. So 15 would be the max. This year says Nissan. Quick question. I think he means for Sam, but he predicted tech.
Then realize I'm the owner of one of the biggest companies in the world, man. But I'm still
Man
here.
like
Big
Nissan.
up, man.
Man like Nissan, you know. Where's your DM at? Because with that team you currently have, you're not anywhere near a title challenger, even top 4. Talking about Liverpool there.
Big up Dan Watson. Big up for the super chat. Big up for being Captain Obvious as well. Obviously, we're gonna get a DM, Dan, because if we sell Fabinho, we ain't gonna go into the season without the DM. I'm sure Terry's probably gonna ask me about it in the Liverpool section. So stick around. There's a lot to talk about.
Let's go into it now. It's a beautiful segue.
Big up Nissan. You know, here's the thing. I think Liverpool Football Club can buy a DM that, you know, has experience and replace Fabinho straight away. Or we can go down the Tom Little route, which is sign 2 kids, which I don't know if the club might want to do. Now, the problem is, the issue is, and Terry knows this, when the world knows that you need a position, suddenly the prices are bumped up. Check Decore ain't worth no damn 70 million pounds. He ain't worth no 60 million. He ain't worth no 50 million. He ain't worth 40. He's worth 35, 30 at best, at max. So I don't know what the hell they're smoking over there at Crystal Palace. I know there's a Crystal Palace fan who comes on the terrace as well. Big up D. But it's just like that football club are insane. 70 million, my ass. And you know what I don't get about Crystal Palace? Sorry, let me attack Crystal Palace just for a second here. Crystal Palace have finished in the bottom half and they value every single one of their players at like fucking 70 million or something. Like, it just makes no sense. How the hell are you bottom half if you've got 11 70 million worth players? It's just insane. Look, Lavia's not done yet. I think we're just waiting on the money to go from, you know, the Fabinho transfer. Obviously, it's going to get done soon. We've heard from Saudi journalists it's done. Personally, because I am not a robot, like some Arsenal fans and United fans who just agree with everything the club does, I disagree with a lot of my club does, which is why my fan base fights me. I didn't want to sell Fabinho. I wanted to keep Fabinho and buy Lavia because I wanted experience in that team. Now, some people use experience as a buzzword. I think Fabinho is not just experienced. He still has a lot to offer on the football pitch. But because, you know, Liverpool Football Club are owned by Fenway Sports Group, they don't care. They're here talking about, from a business perspective, we bought Fabinho for 35 million, used him for 7 years, and are about to sell him for 40. So we're never going to get that money for Fabinho again. So let's just sell him. So I disagree with us selling Fabinho. I would have kept him 100%. And look, it depends now what we do this summer transfer window. I'm not delusional. My answer to Terry has always been, I believe we'll be in the title race. But where we go in the title race depends on the transfer window. If we come up here and we do some bullshit in this last month and a little bit left in this transfer window, and we mess around, you know, Anthony, you know, you're probably one of them Arsenal fans. I can't lie. The Arsenal fans, I've got them on strings on this channel because they think I hate them for some reason, but I don't. I love you guys, man. Big up my cousin from London. So my thing is, it really depends what we do this summer. The Levi Colwell thing is probably dead now that Fofana's injured. I don't think there's a world in which they sell him. I know Colwell will become a Liverpool player tomorrow. He would happily leave that cesspit tomorrow if given the opportunity. But they are being way too unrealistic.
You really believe that he would walk away from Chelsea for Liverpool like instantly?
Of course. Once again, I apply the same logic. More recent success, Liverpool Football Club. Better manager, Liverpool Football Club. Better players, Liverpool Football Club. The issue is Chelsea want too much money and we won't pay that money. I don't live in utopia. I don't live in a fantasy world. I'm not playing some PS5 game. I'm in reality. Reality states Liverpool are not going to buy a defender for 90 million who's still unproven. So I don't think we're going to sign Colwell. So look, regarding the DM, I think Lavia is probably going to end up at Liverpool Football Club. I don't know what happens with the centre back. I hope we sign one because, you know, even in that friendly against Karlsruhe, man, I watched Gomez and Matip and I'm like, these two, man, honestly, dumb and dumber. They're never going to ever become players at this point. They're just so atrocious, man. So atrocious. We cannot have them both playing, so we need the centre back. So for me, we're 2 or 3 missing pieces away from challenging, but I do see us challenging 100%. 100%.
Yeah, look, you've had a good start. I think Callisters got us like a good deals. It's just 3 weeks until the Prem starts, and I'm intrigued to see what Liverpool do, because I think if you don't bring in another defender and a good enough and again, if you bring Lavia in, I think your midfield is set for 2 or 3 years time. You're not winning the Premier League with a midfield of Szoboszlai, Lavia, and McAllister because there's a lack of experience. And I actually agree with you. I think with Henderson and Fabinho leaving, you need to be looking at a more experienced player. Now, someone that was linked to you, and I haven't looked at this guy's injury record for a while. You've been linked to Verratti. Now, from an age and a profile point of view, kind of makes sense. The problem is with Verratti, people have been telling me that he's just injury prone as hell. What even is his age now? What is he, 30 something? He's 30 years old. Yeah, as a player, ability wise, experience, I think would be really good. But if his injury record's bad, you can't be doing that. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't be bringing in somebody who's got those problems. But do you feel like you need a more experienced DM to come in if Fabinho's going? Who would be your pick? Because Lavi is a kid. He's got 1 year experience. That man can't listen. I'm not saying he's better than Bajcetic, but you wouldn't give it to Bajcetic. So why would you give that lead role at that age to Lavia? Like, that just feels like a recipe for disaster. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And that's exactly why I said I don't want 5 kids. I want a DM of age, a DM of experience. Amrabat is who I want. Or Edson Alvarez. Or Palhinha as examples. Please understand, I'm not saying these 3 specifically. I'm saying of that age group. I need a 26, 27, 28-year-old. I don't need a kid. I don't need some 21-year-old coming in here doing all this. Like, I need an actual player of age, a player who has experience on his hand. I just cannot do this whole young and inexperienced crap again. With Verratti, like, I would just say this. We have already a better version of Verratti, which is Thiago. They're both injury prone. They're both, the fuck Bruno brigade type people would absolutely love them because they're ballers. So with these two, we've got Thiago, who's absolutely, like, I think he's better than Verratti now. They're both injury prone. There's just no point. There's just no point, of signing Verratti. There's just absolutely 0 point of signing Verratti. So if Kimmich is available, I wouldn't mind him as well.
Yeah, but again, you're not getting Kimmich because you're not going to spend that. The problem. Do you think the worry that you won't? The problem is when you mentioned some of these players, like Amrabat's available for 25 million. Like, that for me is like a no-brainer. And as a Man United fan, although we had a better season than you last year, if you come in for Amrabat, I'm worried because you've got a chance of getting him over us. The problem is with some of those other names, though, like how much, like a Kimmich's going to cost you 80, 90 million pounds plus. Like, that's how much he's going to cost. And it's whether you guys are willing to kind of spend it. But that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping you guys do go for Lavia, and I'm hoping you don't bring in the centre back, because then, again, I think you'll be a much better team next year, but you ain't winning the league. You ain't winning the league if you don't improve those areas. It's impossible. If you don't improve your back line, it's impossible. It's impossible for you to. Because I honestly, I think, like, Matip, Gomez not good enough. Konate, he's good, but again, I've got question marks over him. And I think Van Dijk is now Van Disney. I think he's past his best. I think he's over the hill, and I think he's only going to get worse. He's still of a very good level, but that's just going to keep declining, and you need to bring somebody else in. And I'm not sure yet. Konate, very good. He's got mistakes in him. He's got that clumsiness about him at times, and that needs to improve this year. But if he doesn't improve and Van Dijk continues to sort of regress, you're going to concede too many. And that was your biggest issue last year. It really wasn't.
How many of you actually put the Van Disney line? Like, you actually said that. You actually called Virgil van Dijk Van Disney. And 80% Virgil van Dijk is better than 90% of the defenders in this league. 80% of Virgil. Like, I'm not disagreeing.
Again, that's a fair statement. However, you're not going to win the league with that. And
we can. 100%.
You cannot win the league.
I'm really not worried.
But you can't win the league if you don't sign another defender.
Yes, but that has nothing to do with Virgil. Virgil's starting anyway.
Yeah, but I think it does have something to do with Virgil, because he isn't the powerhouse he was. If he was as good as he was 3 years ago, you'd be okay without buying a new centre back.
No, I wouldn't, because Gomez and Matip and Konate are injury prone. All three are injury prone.
Dodgy at the back, and he's only going to get worse. And your biggest issue last year wasn't scoring goals; it was conceding them. You guys were so even in your run of games where you started catching up on the top 4, when you go back and watch it, it was skin of your teeth stuff. It reminded me of early Liverpool under Klopp, where it was almost, we'll just try and outscore you, and you were winning 2-1s, 3-2s, narrow games. You got to improve on that. Like, if you concede too many goals, that's where you struggle, especially when it comes to title races. So, look, I think you guys might pull something out the bag, but you know what FSG are like? I'm hoping FSG go full-time FSG and buy a kid and go, it's for the future. And because, again, if you just buy Lavia, I think Lavia is great. But yeah, it'll be peak for your title hopes.
This is exactly why we fly planes, Terry. This is exactly why we fund.
I hear you. And do you know what I like about the idea of you guys what I like about Liverpool not being able to win the title? Because of the standards you've set, I can run with my narrative, which is even if you come second, it's a failure. Like that's that Liverpool have set that such a high standard where just coming second is failure. So it's nice to be able to say Liverpool failed. But yeah, you'll be a much improved team next year. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Let's look at some of these super chats here. First one says, next season, in my opinion, this is going to be a fatal 4-way title challenge, just like WWE Fatal 4-Way. Oh, Fatal 4-Ways. That sounds like a different kind of TV show. Terry, you're hoping improvement by 15 points. Yeah, up to 15 points, definitely. Husam is the Arabian. I thought you said Albanian. Arabian Egal, same logic.
Marcy, don't ever disrespect my legacy like that by calling me Egal. I slap the shit out of you say that again.
Would you, if you had this option, it's super chat, there's an option for you. Keep Van Dijk or sign Saliba, what would you do?
I'm keeping Van Dijk 100%. Saliba's not that guy yet. 1 year doesn't change shit, Terry. Like, would I take Saka over Salah because he was better last year? No, I'm keeping the same energy for them all.
Okay, so I agree with you. Van Dijk's better than him right now. But if I had the choice right now which one to sign, I'd sign Saliba and I'd sign Saka purely on age because of the longevity within it. Like they're the two I'd pick.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to win next season's league title.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true.
And with all respect to Arsenal, let me just say this quickly. Who made you think you're that guy to compare your players to our players? We started comparing, and even Terry will tell you this because we got accused of being an obnoxious fan base. And City, you better say football because Liverpool Football Club fans are so blah, blah, blah. The only time we actually started putting our players in conversations is after we won the champs, after we won the Prem. You've won fuck all, and you're already talking to me about Saliba and Van Dijk. Are you mad? Are you actually crazy? And also, please don't think that if I had the money and Klopp called Arsenal tomorrow, Saliba would be a Liverpool player. Like, don't think you're like, oh my God, no, I want to play at Arsenal. And like, you're just, it's not that yet. Like, it's just, I could take Martinelli, I could take any of your players if I wanted to, if I had the money. I just don't have the money. And so that's the problem. But I could steal any of your players and make them stars at my football club and actually win something.
Do you think if Liverpool today rocked up to Arsenal, put £150 million down, got the bid accepted for Saka, do you think he would leave Arsenal to play for Liverpool?
Of course. Of course. But with Saka, he's going to be a really expensive left back, though. That's the problem. So I like, because he doesn't start over Salah, definitely. So I don't know, maybe he starts left wing. That's a position maybe he could start in. Maybe he could play left back for us. But Saka isn't the guy I'd be looking at. If I were to go to sign someone from Arsenal, I would probably sign Saliba. Maybe I'd sign, a midfielder. Smith Rowe is a talent, I think. I could get Martinelli. Martinelli is more the Liverpool type. Like, he's just a beast in the penalty box. So I think he would absolutely dominate for us. I think, look, with Arsenal, I could take your superstars now, anytime I wanted. But I just don't have the money. My problem is money. My problem is not pull. My problem is not none of that stuff. Because my thing is with Arsenal is like, you guys keep acting like you've already accomplished step one. You've not accomplished step one. You've not won anything. Win something significant, come back to me, and I'll give you all the respect you want in the world. This is not banter, this is a reality. Until you win something, that's when you can start saying Saliba, Van Dijk. Right now, you haven't won anything. So, like, it's just these players have just had a really good season but accomplished nothing. So, based on what can I sit up here and go like, oh my God, would you take Saliba over Van Dijk? Fuck no, I wouldn't. Fuck no, I wouldn't. Van Dijk's way better than Saliba because I've seen Van Dijk be 2 votes away from winning a Ballon d'Or. So where's that for Saliba? That's what I thought. Hold that.
There we go. Chris here says, made top 4 on a normal amount of points for third. This is true. That's about Man United. There's no doubt. Man United will improve on points tally. At most, they'll finish third, but want to be optimistic about finishing second. I think that's a fair analysis. Man United 4-2-3-1 with Mount as the cam. Think Bruno striker. No, he's not going to play a striker. That's just not going to happen. He's not a striker. He's a midfield player. We'll come back to the Chelsea one in a minute. Big up, Terry. Would you keep Sabitzer in the squad? No, I think Mason Mount is better than Sabitzer. I think Amrabat is better than Sabitzer. And then if you're talking about sort of attacking midfielders, I prefer Eriksen to be the understudy. Also, we've got young Manu coming through, and I want him to get game time. And I think that there's a real talent in that individual. We just need game time and nurture him. Be us, Arsenal, and Liverpool competing this year. City third is what Sam believes is going to be the case. Jeez. Amrabat plays in a double pivot with Cass against Liverpool, City, Arsenal, and when United don't have majority possession, that ain't difficult. Gives us options. I agree with you 100%. It gives us great options. This year says Amrabat don't want the Premier League because of the weather. It's just nonsense. It's a nonsense. Do you know it's crazy? Like, you know, it's funny. Like, he's in Italy. You know, certain parts of Italy in winter time are far more cold. Like, you see their players over there wearing tights and stuff. It's so cold. Like, come on now. Like, it's crazy. Plus, the food's better in England. Not the English food, but our restaurants.
That is a horrible take, Terry.
It's not. Listen, English cuisine is in our traditional cuisine is not as good as Italian. I love Italian food. But, you know, like rich millionaires, you know, the restaurants they eat in like London and Manchester, and these private restaurants that you've not even heard of because of like the food in those places is as good as anywhere in the world. Does that make sense? Like those people that eat.
So you're talking about like Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington type.
Yeah, but even bigger than that. So when I used to work in the private bank, we had these accesses to these private membership clubs, and you don't even know where they are in London. You have to, when you become a member, they tell you where they are. Like, you go down a little back alleys, and there's like a metal door, and then you go down 5 flights of stairs. You're in this like looks like a speakeasies. The food in there, like a steak, is like £180. These kind of that's where they eat. That's where these rich celebrities eat. They're not eating in Weatherspoons. Do you know what I'm saying? But I'm only joking, by the way. People get really triggered. And again, all the cuisines in England are the best. It's not like casserole. It'll be an Italian restaurant or an Indian restaurant or whatever. But yeah, the food's great. Like the food is great when you've got the money to eat out. But avoid Weatherspoons. Avoid Weatherspoons. Someone says too much tomato in Italian food. Depends on what Italian dishes you eat, but I love a bit of Italian.
I apologize to any Italians watching this. I do not co-sign Terry Flores' message, may I add. I think the Italian cuisine, I think food in Italy, regardless whether it's in a 5-star place or whatever it is, it's clear. I apologize.
Joey, yeah, but listen, maybe. But I always remember Gordon Ramsay doing this thing where he went to like places that restaurants you haven't heard of in Italy, and they cooked a dish, and then he cooked a dish, and they did blind testing on people in the street, and he's always won. People are like, oh, this is nice. But yeah, there we go. Even by the way, I love Italian food, my favorite. That and Mexican and Italian, probably my 2 favorite cuisines outside of. I've got some home comforts I love, like a Sunday roast, but again, the proper one. Anyway, back to the super chats.
How much gravy do you put on your roast?
A fair amount, but my gravy is. But I make my own gravy from scratch. So I you know,
is it like bathing in gravy, or is it like covering the food?
No, it's covering. Like it's again, I wouldn't saturate it because you if you've got to saturate your roast dinner in gravy and then cover it in salt and pepper, that means it ain't that nice. Your food ain't that nice. Like food needs certain foods. Listen, certain foods you need to season well. But if you over season food, it's because you got low. Like if you go to a restaurant where like the food's over seasoned, it's because the meat's low quality. Like you need to be able to taste the actual meat, the actual veg, and you got to get the seasoning balance right, if that makes sense. So yeah, any of our players, you're beyond help. What a dummy is what Sal says.
Me and Soa got that relationship now. I appreciate your support, but it's just like, you know, we could take anyone we wanted, bro.
The pool Liverpool fans talk about hasn't brought them any current superstars in the Klopp era. All the superstars you have came before they were one cap, is what Mateo
Matthews,
says. Yeah?
What did I end my statement with? I said our problem is money. So yes, we haven't signed any superstars, but guess what? Your club don't have no superstars either. They have stars. Klopp makes them into superstars.
This here says, I could buy a Lamborghini, but I don't have the money. That's the most stupid thing I have ever heard.
Hey, if you could pull a Lamborghini but you don't have money, fair enough. But I know I could pull it though, but I just don't have the money. I
There we
could pull
go.
off riding a Lamborghini if you'd like.
James here says, no chance any Arsenal player would join Liverpool now. We are the most attractive prospect in the Premier League, bar City at a push.
No, you're not, James. No, you're not. Once again, more recent success, Liverpool, better manager, Liverpool, better player, Liverpool. So City, for me, are the most attractive club in the country by far. And the exceptions don't make the rule. Before any of you guys start mentioning Declan Rice, we're talking about generalities here. We're not talking about some exception to the rule. We're talking about the rule itself. If you can't admit that City is more attractive than Arsenal, then you're just delusional.
There we go. If Arsenal had the money, they could sign Mbappe.
No, he wouldn't even pick up the phone. If Liverpool had the money, they could sign Mbappe, though. That's the difference.
Speaking of signings, and I wanted to, we are going to move on to Arsenal soon in the show, but I wanted to speak about Chelsea. Chelsea have a gentleman's agreement, is reported, in relation to their move for Caicedo, but I know Nkunku's joined. I know Jackson's in. 3 weeks until the Prem starts. What is your take on Chelsea's current situation? Is it pay the money, or do you think Brighton are taking the proverbial out of Chelsea right now? Because a lot of Chelsea fans are excited about the season, but they still really haven't bolstered enough of their team, and they were buzzing over a 5-0 win against Wrexham, but a lot more is needed. Like, what's your take on the current situation at Chelsea?
I can't believe you just brought up Wrexham. I love this. I love this Chelsea fans, but that Wrexham game had them gassed up, and I understand why as well, because for them, they haven't seen 5 goals in a game in a really long time. I mean, with Chelsea and Caicedo, Chelsea and Caicedo is the nightmare scenario for both me and Terry and anyone who creates content, because it's just a long as hell saga. And you're just sat there like, when are they eventually going to sign this guy so we can just get it over with? Because every single day there's a different Chelsea ITK or some journalist who just tweets out the Ecuadorian flag with a tick next to it and a blue circle. Like, we get it. He's going to come to Chelsea. But what's happening right now? I think right now with this whole Caicedo thing, it could get messed up still, because the problem is the agreement between Brighton and Chelsea. The problem is not, we already know Caicedo wants to come to Chelsea. We already know that. That's not like some sort of secret. Caicedo 100%, would go to Chelsea. The only problem is monetary. So when it comes to this whole situation for them, is look, if they could agree with Brighton over a price tag, and apparently I've seen as well that essentially Caicedo and Brighton have had like a sort of a gentleman's agreement as well, even within their own club, as in like, essentially, I think the agreement is they're going to allow him to leave for something similar to what Arsenal bid in January. Now, according to reports, they have bid something similar to what Arsenal bid in January. But once again, this goes back to what I've said on Straight Facts multiple times. I think Tony Bloom is just looking at the whole Rice thing. He's looked at this Rice thing and he's like, nope, I ain't going to sit up here and sell Caicedo for that much less than Rice. So he's probably looking maybe at around that 100 million price tag, as they said, apparently over a 4-year thing. So 25 million per year, which is in today's market fair to an extent. I still wouldn't pay that much for Caicedo. I think maybe 70, 75, 80, something like that. But, it's the Caicedo deal. Look, if they do get it over the line, then you got a midfield, a double pivot. So the tacticals are happy of Caicedo and Enzo, which is a great, midfield too. But Chelsea still are missing pieces. That Wrexham game, I think Jackson played really well. Like, Jackson had a very good game for them. They had a couple of youngsters play well. But once again, I still stick by what I said. Chelsea 100% needs someone who can put the ball in the back of the net, either on the wing or as a striker. But they need someone, because I don't think Jackson or the players they have currently are enough. They just need a goal scorer. I'm not even insulting your club. I'm just saying you need a goal scorer. So, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, they most certainly need a goal scorer. I think, look, Nkunku will score goals, but is he the guy that's going to get them enough? They need a number of players to score goals. They don't have any goal scorers. I know Man United needs to improve. I think Højlund will do that. But we have Rashford, we have Bruno, players that we know will score goals already. Chelsea, you just don't know with Chelsea right now. And I watched the highlights of their game, and look, there was some good movement, there were patterns, but it's Wrexham. It's Wrexham. Like, Man United have played Lyon and we've played Leeds, who would both batter Wrexham. The point, and we still haven't seen anything there. You've got to, the Arsenal fans, you look good the other day, but you're playing the MLS All-Stars. It's not a great standard. I think the friendlies coming up are going to be more of an indicator. Man United play Arsenal tomorrow night. That's going to be more of an indicator on how teams are looking. With, again, it's 3 weeks to go. Like the league starts really, really soon. And I think Chelsea are going to need a good start, because if they start poorly, the lack of confidence from last season could overflow into this one, which is why I think, look, get the Caicedo deal done, get the striker in, get a few more players in, just so you can start the season, get a couple of wins on it. Because their first game's you as well, by the way. Their first game is against Liverpool. It's such a hard one to start the season on as well.
If it's nil-nil again, I'm just gonna fucking get mad. I'll be honest with you. If it's nil-nil again for like the 7th Liverpool-Chelsea fixture, I'm just gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, LJ here says, as much as I hate Chelsea, Caicedo should have put a release clause concerning this now. His new advisors screwed up. Yeah, maybe. Maybe yeah, 100%. They're doing it. They're just Brighton.
That gentleman agreement should have been on paper. That's the thing. Had they had a release clause.
Yeah, it should have been like a release clause of 80, even if they wanted more 85. The thing is, with the Declan Rice deal, Caicedo's got the ability to be as good or better than Rice. But he's had 18 months in England. Declan Rice has been doing it for 4 or 5 years. He's got more commercial value in England than Caicedo. It's a joke that they want the same money. It just doesn't even compute to me.
Yeah, Rice is currently better anyway.
He's only got 6 more months than Lavia, and Lavia is going to go for about 40 to 50 million. That's more of a benchmark for Caicedo than, and I'm talking time here. And yes, he's got 3 years left on his deal, but yeah, it's a crazy one. It's a crazy one for me. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do, Chelsea. I really am intrigued to see what they're going to do going into next season.
Place at best.
5th at best, you think?
Chelsea, yeah, and that's all they need, because if you get 5th place, you qualify Champions League.
But yeah, and they'll have good coefficient. Yeah, if they get 5th place, Champions League back on for them. Yeah, as you say, that's a good point. There is another story as well today. Chelsea are looking at a deal for, I think it's pronounced Elye Wahi, £28 million deal for the striker. But it's reported today from French outlets that Arsenal could try to come in and hijack this guy. He scored a lot of goals in the last 2 seasons. Very, very talented player. Do you know much about him yourself?
No. What's his name? Let me check.
Elye Wahi. Elye, and surname is Wahi. I think it's pronounced Elye Wahi. That's what Google Translate pronounces. That's how I do. I do Google Translate.
ELW what? Say that again.
Yeah, so you put your surname in. It's Wahi.
El Wahi. Okay.
El Wahi. Yeah. I thought it was all one word at first when someone said El Wahi, and then El Wahi. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
who plays for Montpellier. That's the player.
Yeah. So he's linked with Chelsea. £28 million bid, but it's now being reported that Arsenal could come in and try and hijack this deal. They could come in and hijack him. Maybe this is like Arsenal and Chelsea fans have been fighting for a minute on socials about who has the better pull. And I kind of want to see them go for the same player to see who wins the race. Do you know what I'm saying? I want to see it.
If Chelsea sign him over Arsenal, then it's bad news for all the Arsenal are attractive merchants in the comment section. It's going to be a bit peak. I'm telling you right now, I've never heard of this guy, but let Chelsea sign him over Arsenal. I swear to God, the shit I'm going to say on next week's Straight Facts, you guys are going to have to block me, some Arsenal fans, because it's just you guys are so delusional when it comes to this whole conversation. I've never heard of the guy. I've literally just heard of him now for the first time ever. Montpellier, by the way, employs the first Jordanian to ever play in Europe. Big up to Musa. Good luck to you, my brother. He's signed for Montpellier this season. Can't wait to watch him in the French league. And the second thing is, I haven't heard of the guy. But if Arsenal and Chelsea if Arsenal and Chelsea are looking at him, it's a good situation. Like it means, like, you know, both big clubs are looking at him. So we'll see what happens with him. But they both. Here's my thing though. What I kind of like with Arsenal, if you want a backup striker, why don't you just keep Balogun? Because Balogun's done a lot better anyway. Like, are you really dying for that 30 million? Like that?
The rationale could be Balogun wants first team football, but maybe El Wahi is happy to be a backup option to begin with. Maybe Balogun, and sometimes that has to be in your decision making. It's a bit like Liverpool. I know you want to keep Fabinho, but if Fabinho is like, I want to go, it's hard to keep players that don't want to be there because of motivation. So if Balogun believes he should be a starter, Balogun isn't going to start for Arsenal over Gabriel Jesus. So whoever joins is going to be behind him in the league, and maybe Balogun doesn't fancy. That's why Eddie Nketiah got the new $100 grand deal, because Eddie Nketiah, in my opinion, will be happy until he retires to sit on that bench for Arsenal. He strikes me as that kind of player. And that's not a dig, by the way. You need players like him in football. It's like third choice goalkeepers. They have to exist. Like if people weren't willing to not play football and be on that bench, you need people that are like that way inclined, if that makes it's like any normal job. You'll have seen it when you do your job. There'll be certain people that are very happy. They get to a certain level and they're happy to stay at that level forever. They have no ambition to do more. And you need players like that. But I think Balogun is more ambitious than Eddie Nketiah. So maybe that's their train of thought on this. But yeah, I want to see a shootout. I want to see both Arsenal, because we haven't had that this summer. This summer so far, we haven't really. You can argue you had it with Declan Rice, but we didn't quite. Yeah, we did. What we didn't see was both get bids accepted, and then who he picks. So I kind of want both teams to agree terms and to be willing to get him, and then he picks one of the sides, because then you work out the pull factor. Equally, though, as well for Chelsea. A lot of Chelsea fans have said they're going to loan him straight back out to Strasbourg. I don't know, man. You need goal scorers. Like, you need goal scorers.
Chelsea need goals. Chelsea shouldn't loan back any striker. Keep all of them around. Just because you need goals. That's Chelsea's problem. I'm gonna be honest with you. And by the way, if he chooses Chelsea over Arsenal, long day for all of you. Long day. I promise you. Don't bring me back next week, Terry. Don't bring me back, because if he chooses Chelsea Football Club over Arsenal, some people in the comments are gonna hate me. I'm just going to say that.
Do you know what? Arsenal fans should be cocky and confident right now. They were the second best team in England last year. I think right now, I genuinely believe they're one of the best teams in Europe. One of the best teams. They're in my view, they're in the top 5, top 6 favorites to win the Champions League next year. I know they never won it before, but they're just marginally behind City in terms of their overall quality. We saw that last season, and they've bought real quality and back their manager. And if you're one of the best in the Premier, one of the best in Europe, in my personal opinion. Now, they should be really confident, Arsenal. They should be really enthusiastic about the season. What I'm not seeing yet from Arsenal fans, though, is... And someone here says, Terry, I'm out. Terry's twerking and waffling. See, you didn't get to the end because you've got no patience. I feel so sorry for your girlfriend. You don't finish well. What I'm not seeing from Arsenal fans backing up this confidence, we've got more pull, the signings. I'm not really seeing a lot of, I think we're winning the league, or I think we're winning a major trophy. I'm really intrigued as to why that level of, they're confident about everything other than end result. And that's not a dig, but that is why do you think that is? Why do you think Arsenal fans are not yet saying, I think we're winning the league, or I think we can win the Champions League, or I think we'll win at least one trophy next season? And maybe I'm missing it, but I'm just not seeing a lot of that as of right now.
There's something in the water in North London, Terry. It might not just be Tottenham Hotspur that are a bottle job club. It's a possibility Arsenal are as well. And I understand why Arsenal fans are not confident. Listen, you're top of the league for 93% of the year. You end up losing it. It's fine. I'm not expecting you to be that confident. PTSD. I mean, most Arsenal fans watching us right now have never seen a title race in their life. So just like I was in 1920 when we were 30 years, when we were like 30 points ahead, just because I haven't seen a league title my whole life, I would always be scared that some shit's going to happen. So, I could never be that confident about a title race. And I understand where they're coming from. And it's been a while since Arsenal have been relevant or successful. So they're just excited to see what happens in the future. And the second thing is, and this is why I give United credit with Ten Hag, that he played mostly starters. Arteta did rotate heavily in the Europa League. Now in the Champions League, they don't have the option to rotate heavily. Because I still remember Liverpool lost to Red Star Belgrade. Liverpool lost to some shit in the Champions League because, by the way, Madrid lost to Sheriff Tiraspol. The thing is, you need to understand, in the Champions League, every game is serious. Like every game, because if I'm going to play Red Star Belgrade, every single one of their players are pumping their chests, wanting to prove to the world that they're the best of the best because they want to beat Arsenal because they know millions and millions are watching worldwide. So you can't take any game as a joke. So Saka's got to play 6 group stage games. All the players have got to, the serious players have got to play 6 group stage games. So it's a bit more game time. It's a bit more pressure for them. And look, it for me personally, once again, I really like the Rice signing. I really like the Timber signing. I think Timber is also a steal this summer transfer window. And as the energy I kept for United, I keep for Arsenal, I think Havertz is going to fail at Arsenal Football Club. I'm not looking at it via the skills challenge. I'm not looking at it via anything like that. I just don't think Havertz is that guy. Same way I don't think Mount is that guy. So we will see. We will see what happens with Arsenal. But I think currently it depends as well if they sell Partey. Because Partey is going to be a massive part of this whole Arsenal thing.
Yeah,
Once again, I've had this conversation. Remember, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, that's a midfield. But if you come tell me, like, I don't know, whoever, Rice, Havertz, Odegaard, I'm like, nope, I ain't buying that.
But yeah, Partey stays, it's different. Tevin here says, Terry, really, after everything, you want us to have more chest when man like Husam exist? I look at it this way.
Tevin!
I'm not talking about Arsenal fans who are just. I'm talking about the ones that are talking up. We've got more Paul than Chelsea. We've got more Paul than Liverpool now. I think we've got this. We've signed the best. Like Igal and his whole crew the other day. Declan Rice better than Casemiro, which means you're saying Declan Rice is world class. When I'm seeing that much chest, I'm just not seeing the end result be we're going to win some major trophies. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just trying to ascertain why. And I do think PTSD is one of them. Predicting. Even when I sit here and say I think Man United will improve by 10 or 15 points, I say it and I feel nervous because people are clipping it up, people are remembering it, and there's going to be a comeback on it. So I'm just intrigued to know like what's going on in the mindset of people. This year says Arsenal don't have a number 9 that can get us to the next level. Once they get a striker that can get us 20 league goals, I will be more confident. Do you know what? I get that. That's a really great train of thought. However, you might not need it this season because I've got a feeling that Martinelli and Saka's goal contributions could be very similar. Maybe not as many, but I'm like Salah and Mane. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool didn't have an out-and-out number 9 that scored, but I think Martinelli and Saka next season you could be looking at players getting 15 and 20 goals each next season. That's a great counterbalance, and
Martinelli is who I'm looking at. If Martinelli could score 20 Premier League goals, then I think they have. But his thing, you do need someone to put the ball in the back of the net, though. It is. I understand where Alberto's coming from.
No, I think he's right. I think what might happen this year. Look, if Gabriel Jesus didn't miss 4 months, he probably would have got about 15 to 20 league goals last season. If you look at his run rate, I think Saka and Martinelli, a year older, will help. If they bring in Mohamed Kudus as well. Like they're not. The thing with Arsenal, they're not looking at number 9s. As far as maybe next year they'll do that. They're very much looking at another inside forward or attacking midfield player. I think it's about spreading the goals amongst them. But you never know. Maybe Kai Havertz turns prolific this year.
Oh, God. There's a bigger chance of dinosaurs coming back. What are we doing?
Mate, you never know with the way the world is now. This says, Jesus Christ, did someone just said that Rice is better than Casemiro? Yeah, Igal said it. He said that he is better. And I asked him yesterday because me and Igal had this debate on a show like 4 months ago, and he said that Partey was better than Cass, but he said Cass was 3rd best in the league. And I'm like, so Rice is signed for Arsenal and suddenly he's better. Listen, it's funny as well because Igal does this on these subjects where even with managers, he goes, you can't use someone's past to determine how good they are. I'm like, you can if they're still at that level. They're like the point is, Jose Mourinho's CV doesn't help him now in terms of who's the best at the moment, because I wouldn't, if honestly, I mean this genuinely, if there's only 2 managers in the world available to take over Man United, Mourinho or Arteta, I'd probably go with Arteta. I think Mourinho is absolutely done at the highest level. But genuinely, I think he's done at the highest level. However, so his CV becomes less relevant in the contemporary sense. But if this season coming, Arteta wins more than Pep, that doesn't make him better than Pep because Pep's still at the peak of his power. So his CV is relevant. And I think the same works for players. Until Rice shows in the Premier League and Champions League in a high pressure team that he can outperform what Casemiro does, he ain't better than him. He might have better pass completion stats, but he's not better than him until he proves it. And he could be because I think he's brilliant. But yeah, it's crazy that he said that. There are not much prolific strikers in the market. No, there isn't very many of them around right now.
Osimhen and Kane. Kane, though, here's the thing. Sol Campbell moved before the social media era. If Kane moves now, I don't think he would be able to live in London.
Do you know what? On a real level, footballers don't live in the areas where the type of football fan that would hurt you are. Like, that sounds harsh. The kind of delinquent, like lame brain who would physically hurt a football player on the street can't afford to live within 100 miles of where these people live, right?
You do agree he would need security, like genuinely.
He probably would at games and stuff. But listen, no Spurs fan believes it's plausible. I think there is an outside chance Kane would sign for Arsenal if he was a free agent. Because I don't believe football players love the clubs as much as they tell us they love clubs. I just don't believe they do. And that's all of them. Look, Rashford will say Man United's home. And it is home for him right now because that's where he wants to be. But if the circumstances were right, he'd play for anyone else. Maybe not Liverpool.
PSG.
Right? He'd go somewhere else. I'm not deluded enough to think that it wouldn't happen. We've seen it before. We have seen people make crazy decisions to manage different teams, play for teams. I genuinely think that it's an outside chance. If they let him go on a free, listen, if you ask Harry Kane, he'd say, no way, I wouldn't do it, right? He'd 100% say no. But a year before Sol Campbell joined, I remember being in a room with my dad, who's a Spurs fan, and a few of his mates were there. He was in his office. He used to have an office in Leebridge Road in Leighton. And he was in his office, and there's a few other blokes in there, a guy called Mo Stone, who was like a singer and a comedian. His wife was in there, Barbara. They're from North London. They were Arsenal fans. And there was another bloke in there, his name I don't remember. And they were talking about Sol Campbell, 1 year left on his deal. And the Gooners were like, I think we'll get him for free next year. My dad just was laughing at them. No way Sol Campbell, even if he leaves for free, he would join you lot. He's Spurs through and through, loves us. What happened? He did it. The fact this happened before, history repeats itself. Outside chance. But yeah, listen, Matt, do you know what? There is almost a part of me that wants it to happen just to see the carnage. Just to sort of, do you follow any of those Twitter accounts where it's like just fights, mad street fights? I love sitting there watching it.
I know what you're talking about.
Like Fight Heaven, and I love that sort of stuff. That's how this would be for me. But sitting back, watching trash TV and carnage unfold, just sitting there going, wow, look at the meltdowns. I'd love to. I don't want Arsenal to get him. Don't want Arsenal to get him from a football point of view, but from a social element, I want to see it. I want to see it bad.
I promise you, I would have to work with security in London.
I get you would. Terry, please don't use Igao and his crew as a standard Arsenal fan. They are just the loudest. Man United fans are also delusional on social media. Right, Husam? Oh, there's loads.
As they say, right, Husam, Terry himself will tell you United fans are delusional. If you go to the United section of this show, just watch what we said about Bruno. That tell you
it's true. Randy TV says, what are you guys talking about? It was confirmed that City matched Arsenal's bid. Rice was still picking Arsenal. That's why they didn't want the last bid. Okay, fair enough. Then maybe it did happen with that deal. Yeah, that's cool. I'll take your word for it.
Once again, the exception doesn't make the rule. The law of gravity applies everywhere, but doesn't apply on the moon or on Mars or on different things, but still is the law of gravity.
I'll rephrase what I said. I always knew he was going to pick Arsenal because that was the news. I kind of want to see a deal where we don't know, where there isn't a preference being spoken about, and then I really want to see that. This summer,
Liverpool call Brighton for Caicedo type thing. That's what Terry means.
Yeah. I'd love to see something like that happen. Like the Rafinha one last summer was really good for that. This year says in the last decade, nobody has done well against City. Nobody said Man United must win or Paul must win, but Arsenal are good for the first time. But suddenly we must win the league. The double standards are sick.
Terry Flowers, has no one ever said Paul must win? Are you mad, Aston, man?
I said it on the show. If Liverpool don't win the league next season, it's a failure. Exactly. If Arsenal don't win the league next season, their Premier League campaign is a failure based on how long your managers have been there, how much money you've spent, and the quality of your team. Having a fouled season doesn't mean sack the manager. You have to contextualize everything. But Arsenal, the rebuild's over. Man United need to make top four or it's failure, and they need to close the gap on the title race. And they have to win trophies in Premier League wise for it to be acceptable. For it to
You'd
be
have to win the
acceptable for us.
Champions League for it to be successful. Otherwise,
or finish third, improve by 10 points, win the FA Cup, do well in the Champions League. Then you'd say overall season good. By the way, if Arsenal win the FA Cup and the League Cup and come second in the Prem, it's a successful season overall. But you'd have fouled in the Premier League because you're that good. And when you get to a certain standard as a team, if you don't win, it's failure. And that's not a dig. It's the reality of the situation. You know, there's going to be a boxing fight soon between Dylan White and AJ. The loser failed. Doesn't matter how close the fight is. The loser's going to be a fate. Like in that fight is fouled and will probably end up retiring. So yeah, listen, it's, and I don't think listen, you're right. There could be a double standard out there in the media, but there ain't from me on the terrace. Cause in this same very stream, I've said Liverpool have to challenge for the league or win the league. Otherwise it's failure. But there is some hypocrisy out there. I get it. But on this show, nah.
Nope.
This year says just because a third-tier journo in France said Arsenal might hijack, then Chelsea end up signing him, doesn't mean Arsenal were in for him seriously or officially. Husam pushing an agenda like Fox News. Cap.
I listen, I love your energy, Matthios. Big up, Matthios. Matthios is my guy as well. Big up to you. But here's the thing. Terrace's scenario is already pretty self-explanatory. He said if both clubs agree personal terms and they have accepted bids by Montpellier, then who does he sign for? That's the scenario he's given. He's not saying like if it's just interest versus an actual bid, that would be us waffling, but that's not what we said.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, Arsenal haven't done anything yet. Chelsea ain't even bid yet. I'm just saying I'd love it to pan out that way and we can kind of watch a really nice battle in the transfer market unfold. This here says, I hate people saying Trent should be a CM. Leave him.
I agree. Inverted right back is what he should be, 100%.
Yeah,
that's when you get the best of him.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I'm intrigued to see it next season when it matters. Many years of hurt and weak mentalities got to win is what Sam says. Yeah, like Arsenal do have to win now. They have to win, and Man United are pretty much there as well. And I put that same pressure on my team, you know. And if we don't improve how I expect us to, I'll say we fouled in the league. If we don't improve by 10 to 15 points, we fouled this season. Again, you contextualize it. My opinion may change slightly when we review the end of the season, but we have to improve because we know how many.
If United get 5 injuries to all their centre backs, then context changes. That's just listen. The reality of football is context changes based on what happens throughout the season. Simple as
100%, 100%. This here from Marcy says, I love the fact that Arsenal were being linked to every player. This was Man United a couple of years ago.
It's a good sign for Arsenal. It means, you know, I think it was a City fan I was speaking to maybe 2 or 3 days ago where he said Arsenal are being quite aggressive in the market, which you, Marcy, as an Arsenal fan, you should really love. And I think that's the direction that Arsenal should be headed in. Yes, you should be aggressive in the market. Yes, you should give it your all. And yes, you should try as hard as you can to get as many quality players as possible. However, it's also me and Terry's and everyone's right as a football fan to go like, I think Havertz will suck. It's just our opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Your opinion on Aston Villa signing Moussa Diaby?
You know, certain football clubs piss me off. Had we or United or Arsenal or Chelsea wanted Moussa Diaby, they would ask for 70 million. Because it's Aston Villa, they ask for like half the price tag. I hate this big club tax people apply on transfers. But I think Moussa Diaby is a very exciting prospect. But for me, once again, prospects have failed and have succeeded in the English Premier League. We will see. I think Aston Villa are developing quite an interesting project over there. I think they've got an outsider's chance of top 5. Remember, once again, we need to stop saying top 4 and to start saying top 5 because the 5th team is also going to make it to the Champions League. So with the top 5, there's a prospect of it. And aren't Aston Villa and they're not in Europa, they're in conference, right?
Think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, with Unai Emery's European record, they get a European trophy. It's massive.
Yeah, they could do that. Baba here says, Terry, when you talk about Chelsea, why do you talk about the Abramovich era? But Chelsea have been winning trophies pre-Abramovich since 1997. So again, the reason that I do that is I think that you did win trophies before then. I remember Petrescu's goal in the FA Cup final very, very well after only a handful of seconds. Fairly reminiscent of Gundogan's. Similar type of strike as well. But although I don't think it was a volley, I think the ball's on the ground. However, what you were not doing in my lifetime up until Roman was challenging regularly for Premier Leagues was being one of the best teams in Europe. So that's why I think there's a difference, because Chelsea went up a level in terms of standards in that period, my friend. So that's why it's looked at as a different era for Chelsea, where you went to the highest level of the game. That's my take as an
It's the
outsider.
volume at which you're winning trophies as well. The volume and the quickness. That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Aston here says, if Mbappe would go to Liverpool, why did he say if he could pick an English project, it would be Arsenal?
First of all, that's a cap. Like that's a cap headline on a news story right there, because it was a slow day. There was no transfers for a couple of days, so people decided to make that shit up. I promise you, Mbappe wouldn't pick up the phone call to Arsenal Football Club. But if we had the money, he'd sign for us. I think City is probably the most attractive club. I'd pick us second, and third is a conversation. You get pissed off at that, Aston, but why is United not more attractive than Arsenal? Based on what? Why is Chelsea not more attractive than Arsenal? Based on what? So we have to wait and see. You need to understand your project is exciting, maybe for kids, maybe for players who are 18, 19, 20. They're trying to win some shit, in their career. But for players who are trying to win now, it's completely different. It's a completely different animal you're talking about.
Look, I think it's Arsenal are very attractive. The one thing I and Arsenal fans won't like me saying this. The one thing I don't disagree with them. Arsenal fans will say it's the most, like, theirs is the most exciting kind of project in the Prem or in Europe. That's just bias. It's because you're most excited about it because you're an Arsenal fan. I'm far more excited about what Man United are doing with Ten Hag than I am what Arsenal are doing right now at their club, because it's my football team. But I'm biased. And Liverpool fans, if they get all the right players, some of them. Chelsea fans, I speak to all. Oh, I love what we're doing. I'm excited about this. Everyone's project is more exciting to them than others. Arsenal's is great. And listen, I think both would have a chance of getting Mbappe if the money was there. But the problem is the money ain't there. Terry, what is the likelihood the Glazers will sell now that Dan Snyder has sold his teams? I think there's still a big chance they sell, but the Man United fans should have said this 4 or 5 months ago. We will not buy a kit. We will boycott sponsors, and we will not renew season tickets until you sell. We should have put pressure on them financially. Fans bottled it again, so it may not happen. O'Malley says, as Arsenal has improved, more fans have switched their Kroenke out tones. Is there anything the Glazers can do to make you change as you are improving? It's about continual improvement. So if I look at Arsenal as an example, something that me and Jess spoke about for a number of years, it was okay, great, they're starting to do better. But what do they do when it comes to contract renewals? And you get big clubs like Liverpool and City sniffing around Saka and Saliba. They've proven what they've done. They've paid them the going rate for players their age. They've gone out in the market and spent big. So that's the question. So for me, with Man United, Graham Souness did a video the other day going, well, they've spent money, so Man United fans just stop moaning. We've never moaned about how much we've spent. We've moaned about the failed projects, how we would spend 250, 300 million on one manager, it not quite work, sack him, and then start a brand new rebuild, have to sell 95% of the squad and start all over again. And you hemorrhage money rather than having a club philosophy, and the squad that you've bought is good enough for the next manager, barring some additions, because there's a continuity of footballing philosophy. These are the types of things that we complain about. And for me to change my mind about the Glazers, yes, winning the trophies is important. Respecting the club's heritage, though, making sure Old Trafford looks good, upgrading training facilities, treating fans responsibly, paying down the debt, investing all the money the club makes into the football team. The fact that our women's teams were getting changed in car parks 2 years ago is utterly reprehensible. When they're taking out 20, 30, 40 million in dividends, that money should have been used for them. So it's not just about the winning, it's everything that kind of goes into it. And if Eric, my fear of the Glazers staying is this season we win another trophy, do well in the Champions League, I'm just making this up here, but come second in the league, 5 points off top. What the Glazers might then do is say, well, you're good enough now, and then they'll stop. What they've done to every other manager at that sort of point is they stop investing. And then it falls apart, and then they start throwing loads of money at it again, and it just needs to be consistent. City and Liverpool are the living proof of this in 2023. You have to keep spending even when you're winning. It can't stop for a year or two. Look at Poch and look at Klopp. Look what happened to both their teams. Liverpool, Spurs are on the edge of winning major trophies, and they stopped spending. Liverpool were the best team in the world, and they stopped spending. Look where they are now. So you have to, and that's what I would say about the Kroenke situation. It's great they're doing it now, but this needs to be every single year.
100%.
Maybe not every year, but it has to be regularly over the next decade for me to change my opinion on my owners.
It's not about sustainability. It's not about one window, ever. It's the same people who come tell me, oh my God, let your apologies be as loud as your disrespect. You paid 60 for Szoboszlai. I'm like, shut your ass up. That's one transfer. We need 2, 3, 4 years of ambition. That's what we need. That's what makes it different, man.
No,
Sustainability.
100%, bro. 110%. I agree with you. I agree with you there, mate. 110%. You never talk City down in front of Steve. Shook. I spoke about it. Everything I spoke about with Sam today, we spoke about yesterday. I literally spoke about how I think they're getting rid of their depth. Go watch the show. Sam, do you want to make another bet?
When the transfer window closes, don't worry, I'll make one. You know me, I'm a crazy guy. But this time I won't put my hair on the line though, because I need that hair still. I'm gonna need my hair still. I try to get rid of my hair. I'm just waiting to the end of the window.
There we go. As an Arsenal fan, I reckon we could have a 3 or even 4 horse race for this coming season between Arsenal, Liverpool, City, and maybe one more club. Listen, if that happens, it will be one of the most epic seasons in a long, long time. Husam knows ball, but he proper disrespects Arsenal.
I don't. I just say my opinions. Diallo, come on, don't be sensitive like these Arsenal fans.
Depends on who pays more regarding the Wahi thing. I hear you. Wahi is an Arsenal fan, so he'll pick Arsenal, is what Benjamin says.
Sterling is a United fan. He played for Liverpool, Chelsea, and City. These things don't matter anymore.
City's entire Harry Kane's an Arsenal fan. By the way, that's why I think there's an outside chance, because in his heart he's an Arsenal fan. It's like, do you know what's funny? If Everton maintained their quality from the 80s and early 90s, there would have been a chance that someone like Jamie Carragher could have played for them if he left Liverpool. The only reason it would never have been an opportunity is they fell off, and there was no way he was going to leave a club like Liverpool to go and play for them. But if Liverpool were like coming mid-table and Everton were winning, of course he'd be attracted to play for his boyhood club. Do you know what I mean? I think Gerrard was also in it. I swear I've seen a picture of Gerrard in an Everton shirt as well.
No, that's a bet with his uncle. Don't try it. That was a bet with his uncle and he lost. Yeah.
There we go. Listen, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show today. It means a great deal to us. Please make sure you hit the like button. Please make sure you subscribe to the Football Terrace as well. Very, very important to us that you get that done. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And